Hello everyone. Welcome to the world of AI, fashion and more, brought to you by Aistetic. I'm your host Duncan, and this is the show where I interview AI experts, e-commerce and fashion leaders who share their stories and insights to help you learn and grow your e-commerce business faster. So subscribe now on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. In this episode, I interview Adam Pearce, founder of Blend Commerce. Adam is an e-commerce expert who has won numerous agency awards, most recently winning UK and Global CRO Agency of the Year. In this episode, we cover how Adam founded his agency with his brother-in-law Peter and has grown it to a team of 18 people. We dive straight into CVO, Customer Value Optimization, and why you should focus on this metric. We talk through the key trends you should be jumping on as an e-commerce business, our obsession with acquisition, the risks from ChatGPT, the importance of long-term community, and how you should be thinking about your e-commerce business in 2023 to keep it simple. This is an episode packed full of e-commerce insight and advice. Enjoy. Adam, welcome to the show.
Hi Duncan, nice to be here.
Great to have you. So, just to kick us off, do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you that you can share with us?
Yeah, I've probably got two actually. One that maybe is not so inspiring, but a favorite quote of mine is, eagles may soar, but weasels don't get stuck into jet engines, which is kind of like an anti-motivational quote, I guess. It's always stuck with me. Someone told it me about 20 years ago, but I kind of like that one. But on a more serious note, there is a guy called Jocko Willett, who is an ex-Marine. And he's a very tough guy, exactly like myself, well-known hard man. And he has this brilliant video on YouTube where he talks about if something bad happens, you say good. And that for me, every time I'm having a bad day or something that isn't going to plan, I watch that video. If you're listening to this, you're having a bad day, go and listen to that video afterwards. It takes about 30 seconds. It will change your day around. So yeah, that's my top tip for motivation.
Nice. Love it. Love it. Cool. So for those of our audience may not be so familiar with your expertise and background, could you tell us a bit about, what do you do, who's it for, and what are the main problems you're trying to solve?
Yeah, sure. So I co-founded a Shopify Plus agency called Blend Commerce about 7 years ago. Either stupidly, foolishly, or maybe thankfully with my brother-in-law, Peter. So yeah, we've been running the company, as I say, for about 7 years. We have a team of 18. And what we are focused on is something called customer value optimization. So there's a lot of people listening probably going, oh, great, another acronym, CVO. What does that mean? Well, in a nutshell, it means one thing. A lot of agencies will focus on one number, and that tends to be conversion rate. We used to do that. It worked for a while, but as a lot of the bigger Shopify brands have got bigger, they are now thinking, well, actually, that's probably not enough. And they need to be looking at what their lifetime value of a customer is, and ultimately then what the margin is that they make on each of their customers. The basic business principles that unfortunately sometimes in e-commerce we've forgotten about. So yeah, as an agency, that's what we do. I also, with Peter, run a number of different events and help tech brands basically get into agencies and get agencies recommending their services and products.
Yeah, E-Comm Colab Club, which is relatively new, right? I mean, that's just...
Yeah, so I think actually, Duncan, you came to one of the first ever ones, didn't you? With E-Comm Colab Club, and yeah, in a nutshell, what this is we host an event in London once a month, last Wednesday of the month. It is for agencies across any different platform, tech across any different platform, and it's basically about getting people together to talk about partnerships. If anyone's been to networking events, they are renowned for serving kind of lukewarm wine and kind of fish-based canapes. We don't do either because we're actually 8 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, it's a fun environment. It's laid back, it's relaxed, but I think, a lot of people have come to it, find a lot of value in it.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. So we'll have to put it in the show notes, the link, but for those listening, I couldn't recommend this series of events more. It's just, you've got a huge fan here, and I think a huge number of fans, to be honest, just because it's so refreshing. It's a little early, starting at 8 o'clock. I have to say, it's a 5 o'clock, 5:30 start for me and a lot of people, but well worth the journey. Just refreshing, honest, direct, a lot of great networking, and yeah, good fun. So
Excellent.
well done for starting that. I think you've done a tremendous job with it.
Thank you. I'll send you a check in the post as well, Duncan.
Yeah, thanks. Can I get something?
Out,
I can get something for that. Exactly. Yeah. So listen, really fascinating. So you mentioned you started the agency with Peter, your brother-in-law, but like just briefly, it's always interesting. I'm always curious, like, how did you get into e-commerce? Like, where did this start? Like, tell us.
Complete stumble and trip into it, if I'm honest with you. Had no intention of getting into e-commerce. Which is why I actually like e-commerce, because I think a lot of people who are in it happen to be that way. Potted history of me is that I went at university, did economics, thought I was going to be this kind of high-flying city consultant, went to work for Accenture, soon realized that although I had a nice new suit from Burton's, I was basically sat there trying to learn how to do SQL and failing. So I did that for about 3 years, didn't kind of get the shiny briefcase and getting the kind of, business class travel that I thought I was going to get. And what I decided to do is I actually decided to go and be a teacher. So I guess completely different. Retrained as a teacher, did that for 3 years. You're going to see this 3-year itch thing with me coming in a minute.
Okay.
And did that, had 3 years of it. And like a lot of people, I think these days, had some pretty significant mental health problems, which I absolutely don't mind talking about. I still manage those daily now, but after that, decided I wanted to do kind of something in between, fell into working for an education app company, liked the idea of marketing, learned a bit more of marketing, fell into digital marketing, and then all of a sudden, my brother-in-law goes, "Oh yeah, I don't want to be a quantity surveyor anymore. And this guy who knows this guy told me about this new Shopify platform from Canada." And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, it's going to be another like flash in the pan thing. Like, no one's going to care in 6 months' time. And he just kept on getting more work, more and more and more and more. And he's like, look, at the time, this was sort of 8 years ago, 9 years ago, there wasn't really one kind of doing the digital marketing piece with obviously development, which now kind of listening to it, everyone knows many agencies do that. And we said, look, let's blend these two things together. Hence why Blend, very cheesy name in the background, and Blend Commerce was formed. So yeah, that's kind of me. So potted history, but yeah, I mean, I always say, Duncan, I've worked in industries where there obviously is a very firm old boys club. Consulting was like that. I worked in the financial services division, so you can imagine what that was like. Not for me. I like the fact that we are all relatively new here. It's refreshing for me, and I don't think you get as much of that imposter syndrome that maybe you get in other industries.
I think that's true. It's just so dynamic. Like everything is continually changing. Just there's always a bit of new technology, a new platform development, a new trend, a new user new user challenge, which makes it just exciting. Yeah, most definitely.
Absolutely. It keeps us on our toes as well, doesn't it, I guess?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's the right way to put it. Yeah, for sure. So listen, if it's okay with you, I'd love to dive into, you have a unique position, right? You're running this successful agency here in the UK, helping merchants grow faster. And, we're in uncertain times, right? There's a fair amount of uncertainty with respect to kind of the macro, the headwinds that we're seeing, some of the challenges. I guess what would be great to hear is just to dive into that and hear, I guess, first off, like what's, in that climate, what's exciting you in the world of e-commerce right now?
I think, the thing for me is with what's happening in the economy is it very much is affecting different companies in different ways. And what I mean by that is that for some companies, it's debilitating them because what they're doing is they're saying, look, at the moment, what we need to focus on is actually bringing customers in via acquisition and basically selling lower price products to up our cash flow. The difficulty with that, though, is that there is a lot of people trying to do that. So therefore it becomes more competitive. It's more expensive to do it. But there is a growing group of people who are saying, look, actually, it is a little bit rocky at the moment. We can't deny that. But what we know is that we actually have, over the past 2-3 years, with everything that happened with COVID, got a very loyal band of customers. And if we really drill into them, we can use things like AI, personalization, to give them actually a much more specific version of what they want.
Yeah.
And then effectively kind of sell more to them. So for me, it is, I guess if you had asked me this question 4 or 5 years ago, what excited me then is, well, look, new brands coming onto Shopify, doing new sites, getting out there, finding new customers. That really doesn't excite me anymore. Okay. What excites me is that it's that very specific, right? These group of customers, what do they want? What do they need? What do they expect? Let's test it out and give it to them. And a lot of the really successful brands are doing that, doing it well, and kicking this recession talk to the gutter.
Okay, awesome. I love the optimism. I love, yeah. So what's conversely, that what's scaring you about now?
I think the scary thing at the moment is there's a couple of things. I think, look, this whole fascination with ChatGPT. I mean, look, it's nice, and you get some nice LinkedIn posts about it, but there is so much scaremongering happening at the moment about people losing their jobs. And although I feel that, some elements of people's jobs will go off the back of it, I think there is still a big space for creativity and for people to use it as a tool to help them. I don't foresee that you're going to get to a point, in the next 3 to 4 years, or even 5 to 10 years, where you're going to be eradicating big swathes of the e-commerce community. But I think what's concerning me about it is that I'm already seeing this trend already of people saying, hey, look, we're going to use ChatGPT to pull some code together. We're going to pull this website out there. And what I'm concerned about is, are there going to be some individuals or agencies that start saying, hey, we can now create, a Shopify brand for you and get it out there very quickly using these kind of, ChatGPT type tools. But in reality, what results do they get? Because if you look at the success of brands recently, what have they done? They've done community building. They've got close to their customer. They've got excellent customer service. All of these things, sorry, you can't replicate those with just something like ChatGPT. Yes, you can create something that looks nice, but the inner workings of personality and how it actually interacts with the customer, it's a bit of a scary thought to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're right. You can't do it. I mean, and there are like huge limitations. I actually had the interesting learning this week. So someone set the task of starting a new AI company to ChatGPT, and they actually came up with a company name very similar to ours, selling T-shirts, Aistetic apparel, which is quite amusing. So yeah, but I agree. I think there's, if you think about a whole community building, execution, relationships, I mean, this is, fundamentally e-commerce is about relationships, about customer relationships and communities. You can't do that with ChatGPT. You need.
No, I mean, I think, honestly, like what I think people are missing with ChatGPT is that whilst it is a good tool, and obviously Bard and Notion have got it, and Google have got an AI tool now, is that all that is great. But the problem is, we are living in a time now where, as consumers, we are more switched on than we've ever been. We are more aware than we've ever been. We are more socially conscious than we've ever been. So ultimately, playing that game of, look, we're just going to keep chucking this stuff out there, I don't see that as something that's going to be sustainable for people that want to stick around long term in any profession.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an authenticity and a realness that's expected. So this is kind of like this. There's this. I agree. There's this kind of tension for sure.
And I'm going to love all of the hate comments that I get on LinkedIn when this podcast goes out as well. So bring it on, guys. Looking forward to
it. No, it's good. It's good. So if you think about it, I would love to hear, and I'm sure some of our listeners would love to hear, as you think about some of your clients and, your customers this year, your merchants, right? What are they asking you for? Like, what are they saying? Hey, Adam, look, what do I need help on? I'm just curious to kind of hear that, a bit of those conversations, or I'm sure listeners would love to hear a bit of the insight behind some of those conversations.
Yeah, certainly. So the thing that the majority of conversations start off with now is that they've been working with agencies for a few years and they are kind of getting tired with this very reactive reaction and this
Okay.
kind of mentality of where as a brand, an agency will kind of say to a brand, look, what do you want us to do next month? And I think what's happening now is that brands who have got bigger and bigger have kind of grown out of that mentality where, as they were burning over the past 3 or 4 years, can you go and do this thing on the product page? Can you make the collection page like XYZ? What
Yeah.
they're looking for, and I'm sure this is what you guys get as well, the Aistetic, Duncan, is we actually need you guys to tell us what we need to fix this particular problem. So I think e-commerce is evolving a little bit in the sense of brands are now coming to agencies and tech partners and saying, right, the problem is this, we need a strategy for it, rather than them going, right, okay, we're coming up with this idea. That's, I guess, kind of from a broader agency point of view, from, okay, what is the thing? What is the problem? The issue at the moment, of course, is still around ads. There is still an obsession with C-level that, acquisition is the way forward.
Yeah.
What's happening though is that the actual, marketing managers, e-commerce managers, e-commerce directors, they have all realized and saying, look, guys, we can't just keep pumping money into PPC. We can't keep pumping money into ads. And we actually need to kind of go out and farm this group of customers that we have already.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that they're asking agencies like us to help them with, is that what are the things that we can do to either engage better our loyal customers, but even secondly, how do we work out who our best customers are? What actually does a best customer mean? I know it might seem a bit daft because most people listening say, well, your best customers are the customers that spend the most. Well, maybe, but how much did it cost to get that customer? How frequently do they buy? What's the return rate on that customer? So it's all these questions that they need help supporting to find out, so that then they can go to C-level and say, look, CEO, managing director, this is the situation that we're finding ourselves in. Here's what we can do instead. And I think the final thing is that when it comes to tech, we are moving away, I think, from this kind of like shiny object syndrome. I remember looking at stores 3 or 4 years ago, you'd have 40, 50, 60 apps. And you go in, what the hell? Oh, well, yeah, but it looked like a great idea. Now, I think what I'm seeing is number of apps on site is reducing. And what they're doing is saying, right, we have this app. Who does this play nicely with? And secondly, with that, what is the strategy and what is the attribution towards the app? There's we can't, I think, now expect, you used to be able to bang out an app and everyone would download it, you make some money and it would stay on store. The smarter brands aren't doing that anymore. They're a lot more conservative with how and what tech they're using on site.
That's really interesting. So from what just digesting that, it's a little bit more strategic, right? In terms of, okay, fundamentally, these are the problems that we need to solve. Help us solve that, rather than just react and kind of, I've got an idea. It's really interesting. So in that kind of context, I'd love to hear, as you look at the market and some of the brands and the sectors you're working across, who's really setting it on fire? If you think about some e-commerce brands and businesses, I'm sure we'd love to hear, who's amazing out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of depends on what you're looking at here, but I think there's a couple of brands out there that I think are doing certain things very, very well. The first one I'll start with is a company called Midday Squares. Okay. And what I really like about these guys, so they are kind of a chocolate snack company based out of the US. What they are doing is they are using their marketing to be very much upfront and open about how their business is going. They post videos about when they have significant losses. They post videos when they have big wins. They've got videos of them, having quite irate conversations in the office about product development situations. And it really is, their marketing to me is very much kind of like watching kind of reality show, but you buy into it because you're kind of looking for the next part. And then you because of that, you're kind of sharing the ups and downs of what they're doing. People want to buy in, and that they become part of the community because they want to, feel, look, well, I've bought one of these products now, or I bought a box of these. I want to get involved with them as a group.
Yeah.
So I think that's, an interesting one. I think, look, everyone always talks about Gymshark. I mean, look, we know a couple of guys in Gymshark, great lads and girls. But, look, I think it's kind of, they're kind of doing great things. They always will be kind of in the history books for that one. But I think from a perspective of, who kind of now, I've seen obviously quite a few posts recently of kind of influencers going into this space. People like obviously Mr. Beast, and you've got the guys doing Prime. They're obviously doing very, very well at the minute. What I'm interested to see is that, we have obviously these bigger influencers doing that. We've kind of got this micro influencer, culture happening. Will we start seeing replications of kind of smaller brands with them coming on board to do that? So that's who I think, I think there's probably potential that we should be seeing coming in. So yeah, that's a few different areas that I'm liking what I'm seeing at the moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's really great examples and inspirational. We've had some, Gymshark's a great brand. I mean, as you said, they've done a phenomenal job, and their marketing is just so real and authentic and just connects like every post.
And so many copycats. Like, if I had £1 for every time someone's come and said, can you make us sort of like Gymshark?
Oh, really? Yes, come on.
Yeah, I'd be wearing nicer clothes than I'm wearing right now, put it that way.
So as you think about, trends and kind of insights this year, what's the thing that the one thing you would say to some businesses out there? Look, you need to, you really need to think about how you're going to jump on this and execute against this trend.
My honest feeling at the moment is it is about simplification of the whole buying process. And by simplification, what I mean is I guess two levels really. One is that how easy is it to find a product that is relevant for you? And then secondly, how easy is it to execute that purchase? And along that journey, is there information, all the information that I would expect to be able to have at my fingertips? So, this is something I guess, that's important to you, Duncan, particularly, is that, when apparel brands are obviously having their product page, is there a very easy way for them to work out, how is this going to look? How is it going to feel? Is it going to make you feel good? Is it not going to make you feel good? What do I need? I need a tool to actually show me how it's going to look and how it's going to feel. You're simplifying the process, first and foremost. Secondly, we had an interesting one recently where we were doing a review for a brand. And what we did is we actually went through and we went and bought the product. Now, it's not rocket science. I did a LinkedIn post like this. We went to the website. We went through the whole process. We bought it.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds so simple, but we had about 30 points from that process that brand needed to change. And, even to the point at which, it was like we were on the product page, and this product we were looking at was actually a consumer product. There was nothing on this product page about how it tasted, about the consistency, about when we would start seeing results. I just, I think the problem is sometimes when we think about e-commerce sites, we lose a bit of common sense because we want to make it so polished. We want to make it look so sexy, and we need a really sexy looking site to get people to go. It doesn't actually work that way. I'm sorry. That's complete and utter BS. The sites that work the best are the ones that make it easiest and quickest for customers to find information they need and buy the product. If I showed you one of our clients' highest performing site by far, 9-figure business, conversion rate through the roof, AOV through the roof, you look at that website and go, really? You're telling me this is a great website because it doesn't look sexy. But what it is it's fast. All the information's there. It's quick to purchase. You want to change your subscription. You can do it via SMS. You can do it via the portal. It's easy, easy, easy. That's the thing that people have got to jump on. Stop making sexy your priority. Please, please.
Amen. I think that I think there's definitely a truth, and I did see your LinkedIn post. I mean, there's a kind of, as you say, there's a bit of common sense here, right? Which is put yourselves in the shoes of the customer and just walk through what that person is going to do, and how can you make their lives easier? How can you make sure that they get what they want and get on with their lives, right? I think there's simple is hard.
Oh, totally. And I think, the thing is, though, this is where, if you are a brand, I shouldn't really say this as an agency owner, but this is where you can make the most of those calls, those discovery calls, those audits with people like me, because ultimately we are fresh eyes who probably, either have only briefly seen your store before, or maybe seen it, never. Ultimately, we are like, a brand new customer, but we are kind of trained in that process of thinking about, okay, well, the technical aspect of that would be blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Milk it, have those conversations. And look, if you like what you hear and you've got some cash and you want to spend it, go and spend it with them. But look, agencies know that, look, brands will want to talk to them. If you're impressed with ideas, great. If not, then they're not. But yeah, you use that and find out with those fresh eyes the kind of things that you should be looking at.
You heard it first, everyone. Call Adam. Call him. Yeah, no. It's so true, so true. I mean, it's that and that's the role an agency can definitely play, this fresh perspective. And it's not always what someone wants to hear, but it's what's necessary, right? In terms of customer journey.
You're absolutely right. And I think this is the difficulty I think that sometimes e-commerce managers and directors have, is that, ultimately, if you have had, C-level sign off for a site, or, the CRMD is the founder and they've had a hand in it, it's always very difficult to go, look, I'm sorry, Mrs. CEO, but that banner is absolutely horrendous. And it's killing your conversion. It's a hard conversation to have. But on the other hand, if you can back that up with kind of going on in a bit more detail, okay, it's not just conversion rate, it's actually the impact is the data is X, Y, Z. And we think if we change this, here's what you could do. You're probably going to, soften the blow a little bit. But I think that's what I think, the e-com directors that I talk to sometimes are a little bit hesitant about doing is upsetting maybe their higher ups.
Yeah, the politics. Yeah. It's always it's a challenge in any kind of business, for sure. So listen, as you mentioned kind of 4 or 5 years ago, it was a completely different dynamic in terms of, okay, what the headspace of, what you're excited about, but equally what you think businesses and e-commerce businesses should be focused on. If you were starting an e-commerce business today, sure, some of our listeners are thinking about that, or perhaps they've already started, right? They're on a journey. What advice would you give them in setting up that e-commerce business for success? Like, how would you go about setting up, the platform, the strategy, the metrics? I'm sure, our listeners would love to hear the Adam Pearce playbook. What would you do?
Number one, I wouldn't do drop shipping. So if you are thinking about drop shipping, don't bother. Reason being, look, drop shipping worked when ad traffic was cheap. Doesn't work now. Margins are poor, cost expensive. So first one, park that idea, please, please, please. Secondly is, if you have, so in terms of an e-commerce store, if you think about all of the successes that recent stores have had, they have started off by one thing, and that is by building a followership, by building a community. And I know community gets banned around, but very, very simply, think about things like, for example, like the Udi or the Udi, depending on how you pronounce it. Okay. Singular product. How did they do it? Well, what they did is they started putting videos on Instagram of people wearing it, and then they sent a few more out, and then it kept snowballing and snowballing and snowballing. It was a very kind of, it was a unique product. There were a lot of kind of naysayers saying, look, it's just basically an oversized hoodie. But that is how they did that. And then they introduced the concept of then going to buy that product. It wasn't really the case, that it kind of started out as being something that, look, you're going to go straight in, here's the product, ram it down people's throat. Yeah. And it's exactly the same as what, the likes of, if you think about people like Lounge Underwear, think about people like Gymshark, all of these guys, they went down that same route of, look, here is some really valuable information, or here is a funny thing to look at, and then bring that in afterwards. The other thing is, as well, is don't go out there. If you've got, your life savings, or you've got a big wad of cash, a lot of people who get made redundant, will go and start up businesses. Do not, I repeat, do not put it all into going and having a site built. Because ultimately, when you start that site, you're going to see very little traffic. Now, the problem is that, it's like the way I guess I look at this is that if you are pumping all of that cash, you go and pump, 15, 20 grand into a site, no one's going to be looking at it and you can't learn anything. Conversely, if you have a simple site created, maybe you spend £1,000 or £5 grand, whatever it might be, depending on what level you're at, you are going to see how people react to that site as it is. Use that data to then go and focus on the things that you then need to do. But please, for the love of God, do not go out there and spend, thousands of thousands on a site. Put an MVP, minimum viable product out there, see what people do, use things like Hotjar, then say, right, okay, they're going to this page, they're exiting on this page, focus on that, build up, iterate.
Yeah, and the great thing nowadays is that is possible. Like, that's just so accessible to everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think that's really sound advice. I mean, the kind of, get it out there, learn, get your data, get your insight, and focus. I think that makes a huge amount of sense, and common sense, really. The challenging thing is, I think you're right. So people kind of gravitate towards what's new, and they'd love to have a new website, or I'd love this. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
So what's the mistake that you see quite often? We've talked actually about a few mistakes today, or a few things, but is there anything that you think, okay, that just jumps out at you, and kind of repeatedly as an agency owner, it's like, not again?
I think it's silver bullet syndrome is usually the one. And there's a couple of silver bullets that people have really burnt themselves on in the past couple of years. So the one is definitely SMS. SMS came out. Okay, it's going to be, our savior. Let's go in. We'll pepper people with SMS messages. We've got a sale every week, and we're going to be rich, and we'll be going on holiday in the Maldives, and we're going to have a Ferrari. Unfortunately, that didn't quite pay off. And what you tend to find is that people, the brands sometimes that we speak with, you look at their SMS list, and I say, look, we've got 50,000, 60,000, 100,000 subscribers in SMS. You then look at actually the spam complaint rate on that, and you also then look at actually the conversion of it. Very, very poor. And what else tends to be to happen is that they've kind of gone too hard. And we've got this problem in e-commerce that we see things in silos. So we see, email marketing, we see SEO, we see SMS. And the thing is, the smart people out there have said, look, actually, consumers don't think like that. They think about brand A. And if they want to reach us by SMS, great. If they want to reach us by email, if they want to go on site, if they go on TikTok. So all those things have got to work together. And too much of one of those things is always going to kind of put people off. So that's definitely a mistake. People do the same with email as well. But the opposite with email is they don't do it enough. What they'll do is they'll set up a welcome flow with 3 emails in, brand story, here's that product, here's a discount. And it's not working. We've got 60,000, 100,000, one brand there, 250,000 subscribers. It's not working. What happens when someone buys a product? Well, they get a notification from Shopify saying it's purchased. Okay. Are you telling when it's arriving? Nope. What do you do when they've got it? Well, we don't. We just say thank you. Well, if it's a shirt, ask them how it fits. wow, like you guys are amazing, the best agency ever. I love it because basically I say things that are common sense. People pay us money for it and they go away happy and I go away happy. Like it's, I know that sounds a bit kind of, patronizing, but in all honesty, there is too much overthinking in e-commerce. Just think about what that customer at the end of that, in their house, when they get the product, what were they expected?
Yeah.
What would they need, and
Yeah.
how can you best help them? Think about it in those simple terms and do it. Those are the mistakes that are made the most by far.
Yeah. The overcomplication, definitely. So listen, we've talked a lot about e-commerce, but I'd love to come back to kind of your career and journey, just to kind of conclude a little bit. What for you have been the important lessons that you've learned in your career in growing your e-commerce agency?
I think, look, for me, and this is kind of tied in with my mental health. I was always from a very young age more concerned about what people thought about me. You probably heard from today's recording that has become less and less important by based on some of the things that maybe I've said. So yeah, if I've screwed myself here, we'll see. But I think, ultimately working with Peter, he is one of those people that has always kind of said, look, nail your kind of colors to the mast. There is always going to be people that disagree with you, and there are always going to be people that agree with you. And ultimately, as a business, that's what we've tried to, and that's what we've tried to do individually. So I think that definitely was a lesson, is, in my early career, and I think like a lot of people, when you go and get your first position or your first career, you are doing, you're doing it to please the man. You are doing it to kind of climb that ladder. We live in a very different world now, I think, to maybe when I graduated, is that you don't need to necessarily do that. Yes, you need to be collaborative, but do you need to be in a way that is like all about what people's perceptions of you? And I think the other thing as well is that what I learned very early on the agency is about understanding that people will view things and do things differently to you, but ultimately can still get a good result. And a prime example of this is me and Peter. People that know me and Peter, or Bob, his nickname is, if you want to find out why he's called Bob, email me, Adam.Pearce, Adam@blendcommerce.com, and I'll tell you. But Peter, for me, I am we do think these things called insight profiles. I'm a very blue personality. So what that means is I like lists. I go through those lists. I do it methodically. I give lots of detailed instructions, and where we go. Peter is more red and green. What does that mean? Peter's a bit more fiery, a bit more direct. He does things that kind of go all over the place, but ultimately we both get things done. We used to frustrate the hell out of each other. Now, if you are a founder or have a co-founder, or if you have, members of the team that you work with, I'd thoroughly recommend looking into insights profiles. If anybody wants some tips of people to speak to about it, just let me know. I'll put you in touch with a few people. But what it does is it shows you that, look, people can do things in different ways. You can actually help them by doing things slightly differently to help them to give you the result that you want. So that's the thing for me, is have that flexibility, learn about how people do things in that way, and then get them to do the things that does lend to their personality, and don't get them to do the things that don't lend to the personality. And that's why, again, I think we've been, relatively successful with the agency, because we know what he's good at, what I'm good at, and we know when to basically support each other and to not support each other.
Yeah, that's so important, isn't it? To be complementary and to be, there's a healthy respect there, certainly. And you can, certainly every time I've seen the two of you together, that comes across genuinely.
Yeah, I mean, look, unfortunately, I'm bound to him by family now, so that there isn't really a great deal I can do to get rid of him, I suppose. But we make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. So last question, actually, just on, we'd love your perspective as we think, just going back a couple steps to e-commerce, as you look forward, and you mentioned, where we've come from in e-commerce, 4 or 5 years ago, where it was all around, we've got exciting platforms, Shopify, it's about building websites, acquiring customers. We've evolved, we've got challenging macros at the moment where we need to be kind of smarter. But as you look forward now, 10 years, how will e-commerce be defined? Do you have a sense of kind of what what that world is going to look like and what that market is going to be shaped by.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things I think that will happen. One is that I definitely feel like it's going to become more fragmented in e-commerce. And what I mean
Okay.
by that is that I think there are going to be more e-commerce platforms that come to market.
Yeah.
And I think they will become more niche. So in terms of by industry type, by service line, I think that will be something that will come in. Obviously we have things like headless, we have composable commerce that is being kind of, again, it's a little bit buzzwordy at the moment, but ultimately everything will become in some way or form headless. What does that mean on a realistic level? Well, it just means that actually where people shop, how they shop, who they shop with becomes a lot easier. It
Yeah.
means more competition, and it means actually that authenticity that we were talking about earlier on is
Yeah.
going to become more and more important, because again, at the moment we've all got competitors we know of that don't really kind of represent themselves very well across different platforms. When headless really kind of comes in, the ability to sell anything anywhere is going to become more and more important. So I see that happening. And then I think the other side of it too is that people, again, they will talk about omni-channel. We're seeing a bit of a resurgence in this term again, again recently, in that
Yeah.
people are, talking about the fact, look, as a customer, does it matter if, I buy it through Shopify, through Amazon, through a
Yeah.
retail store, wherever it's going to be?
Yeah.
There's going to need to be a lot more coming together of those different platforms and working together. I feel at the moment, look, there's a lot of fighting between those.
Mm.
Amazon want to protect against Shopify sales
Yes.
against Amazon, so on
Yeah.
and so forth. Customers aren't going to stand for that. The ones that win, who make it easier to shop wherever they want to shop, whatever that customer's doing in time, a
Yeah.
little bit like the headless kind of phenomenon.
Mm.
I think that's what we're going to see.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I have heard, yeah, some of the discussions we're having, certainly on omnichannel. Yeah. Completely agree. Cool. So, yeah, it's been great chatting with you. So I've got a few final questions. So quick fire round. I'll hit you with a few, probably, well, 6, 7 questions. Just then give us your instant kind of responses and reactions. Just would love to, I'm sure our audience would love to hear. So what's one of the best pieces of business advice that you've received?
Best piece of business advice I received is, oh goodness me. I mean, look, definitely hire slow, fire fast. And when I hear that, I think it's two things. It is, you know, coming to about people is one. And then secondly, it kind of, when you're bringing new technology or trying things, you know, obviously do some research on it first. And then if it
Yeah.
doesn't work, get rid of it so it doesn't impact on the company too much.
Yeah. Okay. What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
Yeah, if you are starting out as a business, got to be the 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. That's one of the reasons that this business was started. Other book as well is Mike Michalowicz's Profit First. If you haven't read that and you're a business owner, read it, because it will change your life. And the last one that I'm going to recommend too is also going to be Mike Michalowicz, and it is The Pumpkin Plan. Probably the most influential book on blend for both me and for Peter.
Okay, awesome. What's your favorite AI tool?
It's obviously Aistetic, isn't it? Of course, I've got to say that. No, I mean, look, I think there are some fantastic things around. I think what you guys do is brilliant. And it helps with that simplification process.
Yeah.
But another one that we have used a lot of is Octane AI. For on-site quizzes, and then with the use of their AI that's coming in, also very
Okay.
impressive.
Cool. What's your favorite item of clothing?
My favorite item of clothing is my brown Chelsea boots that never leave my feet.
Okay, interesting. There's been a bit of a recurring theme. Our last guest was also boots. So yeah, maybe it's winter as well. Like, yeah, boot, get the boots on. What's an interesting or fun fact about you that people don't know?
Interesting fact about me is that when I was a child, I was a child model for teaching magazines. And one of said teaching magazines was on the rack in Coronation Street. If you're listening in the US or across the world, Coronation Street is just like a soap opera. That is one of my claim to fames.
That's a good one. It's a really good one. And what are your most important passions outside of e-commerce and work?
Definitely my family. Look, I've got two little girls, although they drive me mad and I have no sleep and very baggy eyes. Definitely
You
my
don't look
kids.
it. You don't look it.
Mate, it's good moisturizer. It's good moisturizer.
Is
Thanks,
it?
L'Oreal.
Yeah.
If you want to send me some freebies, that'd be great. And aside from that, I am a big fan of really bad for you American food. So like smokehouses, brisket, tater tots, all that stuff. So yeah, when I go to the States, I usually put on quite a bit of weight. So yeah, I like eating, drinking, and my family. I'm a very simple man.
The good stuff and the
Yeah.
important stuff. Yeah. Well, thanks, Adam. It's been a blast. It's been really enjoyable. How, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that? What's the best?
Absolutely.
Best way?
So it's just adam@blendcommerce.com. And also I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So yeah, just find me on there as well. Adam Pearce, Pearce.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Adam. I appreciate the time today. Really insightful, a lot of fun, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks, Duncan. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.